welcome to Alan and Dan Review Stuff. I'm Dan, and I'd like to welcome my co-host to the show, Alan. How are you today?
Yes. I'm fine, thank you.
Has your health returned?
Pretty much. I am better.
That's fantastic. Now, where are you recording from in the world, Alan, so people know where you're at?
I'm in Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
No, I'm in California.
All right, and I'm in Bend, Oregon. And it's a beautiful day here in Bend, Oregon. The sun is out. It's sunny. It's beautiful. I'm sitting in front of a big window here and enjoying everything. And it's a fantastic day. I'm glad to report to everybody.
Well, it's a fantastic day here. Oceanside.
All right. And for those that are just getting introduced to the show, perhaps, Alan is quite a book reader. And he has just recently read something I read when I was very young. And that is Tom Sawyer by good old Mark Twain. And I recommended Alan read this book because he was writing a book about a story. He's writing a story about a child who's somewhere around the age of Tom Sawyer, and I thought this might be a good insight into that kind of writing. And, of course, I was completely wrong. But I want to get, Alan, your feedback on what you thought about Tom Sawyer.
Well, most of it was what I expected. You know, you've got the country, beautiful country, and he is kind of he just wants to skip school. And, you know, I could see where kids would enjoy the story. You know, you want to skip school and you want to hang out with your friends and do what you want to do, play with bugs, you know, and stuff. But it was later in the story I didn't agree with. I like the adventure part that came along. You know, that was good because at first it was just little tiny adventures mainly that were happening, little things that were happening. But then he started being more evil, I felt. And especially at the end of the story, it kind of went off the rails. That's the way I would put it.
So I had chatted about this previously. So you see young Tom Sawyer as something of a sociopath by faking his death, or accidentally perhaps faking his death, but then not revealing himself to the people in the community who are suffering over the fact that he is now dead.
Yeah, many times he doesn't seem to care at all how it's his Aunt Polly. Is that?
Yes, Aunt Polly, yep.
And he just doesn't really care. She seems really nice. She cares for him and all, but he's like he could really care less if she's crying or upset or worried where he is. That was the first sign of red flags starting to pop up.
Yes.
Psyche.
Yeah. What year was that story written in, Alan? Do you know?
It's 1800.
You know, there's a lot of racism in that book too.
Yeah.
So it comes from a different era, that's for sure. I was really scared of the Injun Joe character as a child reading that story.
Yeah.
I was like, holy smokes. In the graveyard at night and stuff, that was scary stuff.
I think the scariest part for me, they were looking for a treasure in a haunted house, and they went upstairs, and then they heard Injun Joe and the Spanish guy talking, and then they realized that Injun Joe and the Spanish guy have a chest of money, and so they're like, "Oh,
yes.
I have to steal that, right?" But it was scary because you know you kept thinking they were going to come up the stairs and get them or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say he was a pretty good writer as far as suspense went. I mean, which you wouldn't really expect.
Yeah, the Lost in the Cave, you know, that's what I remember the most when I watched. I was probably in my teens and saw some movie on TV about it. You know, it was black and white, and they're lost in that cave. Yeah. Good.
Well, what do you think about having kids forced to read this in school for the last, 60 years?
If I had to read it when I was like 8th grade, that's when it seems like I had to, when I first had teachers telling me to read this or read that, For me, it seemed like the 8th grade. Anyway, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'd be about 14. So, geez, I'd be like, holy cow, Tom wants to, he wants to kidnap people. He wants to rob them. Like he wants to be a pirate, but he wants to be like the worst the worst part of being a pirate, and that's just stealing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh! And then he wants to kidnap people, and then they were like, well, Huck's going along with this. He's like, yeah, that sounds fun. And so then but we won't kill all the women. We'll just kidnap them for ransom, maybe. It's so casual. Yeah, sure. Sounds like a good afternoon, We'll use the caves to hide people in, and
we never see the 40-year-old Tom steeped in alcoholism and debt and beating his wife, you know what I mean?
and then out of prison.
Yeah.
Tom would just go straight to prison and never get out. But Huck maybe went through the in and out drunk, and beat his kids, and that was the sequel, I guess.
And the community as a whole is pretty much okay with Huck Finn being this homeless kid. He's just there.
Oh my gosh, I know. There is no child protection services whatsoever. That's for darn sure. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that's just Huck. He's just scrounging for food and living with where the hogs used to be. That's just his way.
It's horrific.
Well, Huck they made it look like Huck preferred to be that way. He liked it. He didn't want to be in school and wear regular clothes and shoes, and be normal.
Of course, because Huck didn't know any better because he was a poor, ignorant child.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of like the theory that poor people choose to be poor because that's the way they want it.
Yeah. Because they're lazy or something. Oh, brother.
Yeah, it's just Huck's natural state was to be homeless.
Well, then he had someone take him in, like a teacher or something, right? Somebody took him in near the end of the story, and then he didn't like it, and he just ran away. But he had the best of everything there for a while. But he didn't want to be dressed up. Yeah,
evidently clean clothes were anathema to him.
Yeah, and going to church and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, any kind of discipline. Well, I guess in some respects the story is a cathartic sort of wish fulfillment story, the way action movies are, about how kids wish they could be free and wish they could do anything they wanted without consequence.
Yeah. But they never got punished. I mean, there was never any real punishment for them, it seemed. Everybody's searching.
Oh, no,
that's in the book. A whole town is searching for them frantically, and then they just show up. Hey, they show up at the church, make a grand entrance, Oh, we weren't really dying. We're fine. Here we are. Yay. And everybody's like, what the hell? But they didn't get mad. They didn't see him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a child's sort of wish that they could do anything they want and have no consequences. Because in my life there was consequences for leaving a glass of milk out. Turn
a light keep light on.
Yeah, you're burning daylight here, son.
Well, here's the biggest disappointment, even beyond that, because that was just something they seemed to be tacked on at the end. Where hey, we're going to have this future of just being criminals, but they never really showed them doing it. Maybe they were just dreaming it, again. But anyway, what really got me was that it was like Game of Thrones, where the White Walkers, every episode, here they come, they're dangerous, we're going to get killed, oh, what are we going to do? And then it was with the Injun Joe, he's going to get us, he's going to kill us, he's going to come and get us with his knife or whatever. But then when it gets to that point in the story, they just, Injun Joe, what happened to him? He just, they found him dead in the cave. They blocked up the cave because they didn't want people going in and out of there and getting lost. And then he was in there, and so he just died. He died in the cave. And that was Goodbye, Injun Joe. You know, it's like just like Game of Thrones. The girl jumps out of nowhere. Somehow she gets in the middle of a million White Walkers, and she jumps and kills him, and somehow gets out of it. It's like, just get that over with, right? Get the White Walker thing over with, and let's get on to the rest of the damn story.
I had forgotten they walled off the cave.
Yeah, they walled off the cave, and Ninja Joe was in there. He just died. He didn't have anything to eat, and evidently too dumb to find his way out. That's just, it was like, let's not worry about Injun Joe. Let's move on to something else. And what?
There's no due process for poor Injun Joe.
No.
Woo.
He just disappeared,
wow.
basically. And yeah, there was something else at the end too that they just kind of wrapped up in a little bow real quick, and I can't remember right now, but it was Injun Joe and something else. Oh my gosh. I'm like, Dad Burke, I'm shaking my hand in the air. Oh, Dad Joe. Damn you.
Well, Alan, let's move on to our second topic for the day, and that is the Prime Video show, Desi and Lucy, which is about a significant moment in their life. It's not a whole retrospective of their life. It shows who they met and some other things, but it's more about a 2-week, perhaps 10-day period in their life when they're preparing for a show with the other cast members, and Lucy is smeared in the press as a communist, and how Ricky reacts to that, how he handles it, how Lucy handles it, how the cast handles it, how the producers handle it, how the TV executives handle it. And I thought it was a really, really fascinating look into that period of time, the show itself, how the Lucy show was created. I was fascinated to see the behind the scenes, so to speak. And I thought they did a wonderful job recreating that time period, that old show. And overall, not to give it all away, but I'll give it away now, I thought it was a wonderful show. I was super impressed, and I liked it. So what did you think of the Desi and Lucy Prime Video show?
Well, I had some background because I had just read Lucy, it's called Love Lucy, and that's the autobiography of Lucille Ball. And she wrote her, she wrote herself. And so I already kind of knew the true story of some of this before I watched the show.
Okay.
They did a good job. They stayed. There was one thing I would mention. Desi was talking to the crowd, that are there at the set, because they had it set up to where the audience could watch. And that was like the first show, right, where that could be done. He invented that, right, where they had the 3 cameras, but the audience could see through them and up above and still watch what's happening. And so he announces that she's not really communist, of course, and then he gets on the phone right there, and he calls, J. Edgar Hoover or someone, and
yes,
has them say, no, she's not a communist. See, there's proof, she's not, and the government doesn't even think she's a communist. So, I also watched the documentary on YouTube with her daughter, Arnez, Lucille. I forget, her name is Lucy, it's spelled different. Yeah, Lucy. Anyway, she is handling this documentary. I mean, she's asking the questions, she's running the whole thing. And she said that never happened, that phone call. So, But otherwise, I think they stayed to the facts.
It was interesting to see how intense and what a professional Lucy was. They showed a lot of her coming up coming up as a young actress through radio, meeting Desi Arnaz, through having small parts in films, and finally advancing into larger parts. His career not really going anywhere, except he was a very famous lounge performer, and he was great at it. And they showed a scene of that where he would play, do his famous song. And so that was terrific. Yeah, that was terrific. I love the energy on that. I thought they really captured that. And I thought that the love affair part of the show was really well realized. You really felt these two people were in love with each other, you know. And not to go off on a tangent, but the Desilu Studios was a completely groundbreaking studio. The first studio ever ran by a woman after Desi leaves it and she buys him out. And Lucy herself brought some wonderful shows to the screen, including Star Trek, for those who have heard of that show. So without Lucy, there may have been no Star Trek. And yes, he did invent the sitcom the way we understand it today. And another thing he did is back then, TV was filmed on a type of, I can't remember the name of the process, where it was not held forever. It was a piece of tape they would rewind over and over. But instead of that, the Desi Arnaz taped the show with actual film and filmed it, and thus allowed Lucy to go into syndication, one of the few shows, or the first show to ever do it, which then allowed Lucy to be showed all over the world for the next 70 years, becoming the most #1 syndicated show in history, all because of the foresight of Desi Arnaz. Yeah, he was a real smart guy, way ahead of his time.
Yeah, and he was running all that and that studio. Well, what I didn't realize until I read the book was that they got so freaking big that they bought out a whole nother studio that was acres and acres of buildings. And then they were the largest, for a while, TV producing company. I didn't realize how massive they were.
Wow, I didn't realize that either. I didn't know Desilu was that big.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And it's because they bought out one of the other big ones. And I can't remember what the name of it was. But then they had tripled all of a sudden, you know, like boom. It's just amazing how big it was, yeah.
Wow. And, you know, looking back, because hindsight's always the one that bites you in the butt, Desi Arnaz made such great decisions in hindsight. Wow. You know, I used to see his appearances on Tonight Show when he was really old, you know, relative to where I was. I think I was 8 or 9 or something. I was very young, maybe even 10. And he was old then, but you could tell this guy was rich.
Oh, yeah. Well, he
did not hurt for money.
Paintings, and that's what he was talking about on Johnny Carson a lot. That I remember, that he was doing art. Yeah,
but I guess he had a lot of leisure time. For a guy who came up and had to escape from Cuba, didn't he escape, right?
Yes.
It was yes. It was an escape situation for him.
It was like the mayor. He was pretty high up, and they were rich. Yeah, that's family. And then all of a sudden they had nothing. It's like, and they're escaping. It was pretty sad. Yeah.
And he did all this on playing bongos and singing. Wrap your head around that.
Yeah. But he was real big when he met Lucy. She was one of those dancers. She was like the 10th one on the left or something, compared to him being the star of the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as soon as she saw him, she was like, bingo. I love this guy, you know. Yeah. She was drawn to him right away.
I'm not going to defend anybody's actions, and I guess through history they say that Desi Arnaz was running around on Lucy having affairs. However, through the culture of where he came from and the time period that he was in and the wealth that he was presented, and that changes how everybody treats you, by the way. Everybody treats you different and better if you're wealthy. You know, he had opportunities presented to him, you know, by ladies that other guys were not going to get, because of his fame and so forth. And so he ran around on Lucy. Yes, and I think, you know, like I said, the time period, who he was, where he came from, the way women were positioned in society, because women did not have control of anything in Cuba. Let's be serious, you know. So,
well, in the 50s,
you know, even
women were just expected to cook and clean the house here, you know.
And it also shows how really progressive Desi Arnaz was, even though he's having all these affairs, because he allowed Lucy to prosper as a businesswoman, as an equal next to him, and you do not see many guys doing that ever.
Yeah.
Even today, you don't see a guy doing that. So he was emotionally secure in many ways, and like I said, he did something that was amazing. He let his wife be an equal in a time when that really wasn't done.
There was one thing, and I'm trying not to get confused because I know we both watched the older one. It was like 2003 or something, where they did this mini TV movie with...
the older one. Yep, I've seen the older one.
So I'm trying not to get them confused because in one of them, they made it look like Desi had a meeting, and they're like, well, the show could be a family. It could be your family, and then he's like, and it made it look like he was asking for help or something when he's the one that did come up with all of this. And they kind of made it look like he didn't. You know what I mean? And I can't remember which.
Yeah, that's the earlier ones. That's the earlier one, yeah, and that's not exactly at all how it happened, of course.
No. He's the one that said it'll be us, and I'll play the bongos. I'll be the thing, and you're just the housewife, but you keep getting involved in all my escapades. Yeah.
My final comment on the show is I thought the acting was absolutely terrific. I thought Nicole Kidman was sexy and beautiful and funny as Lucy. She did the grape crushing scene from the classic show, and I thought she really captured the grape crushing scene. She did every movement. She captured every moment. So I think Nicole Kidman did her homework and did a fantastic job because she had to portray two people in this movie. She had to portray Ricardo, the madcap, loony, wife of Ricky, and she had to portray Lucy, the intense businesswoman, the performer, the actress, the mom. And I thought that was just a great performance.
It was, yes.
All right, Alan, we're going to move on to our next topic. And, with the plethora of shows out there, it's impossible for all of us to see all shows all of the time. And so Alan and I don't even try to do that. So sometimes Alan may see things or read things that I don't see or read, and vice versa. So very briefly, we're going to talk about the show that's appearing on Hulu right now. It comes out every week, a new show, and that show is Pam and Tommy. It's about the time, I think it's in the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, where the internet is just beginning, and a sex tape is stolen from their house, released on the internet for sale, which becomes really the most famous celebrity sex tape of all time in some ways. And it's about the stealing of this tape, about their love affair, how they met, how they fell in love, how they got married, and the repercussions in their lives through all sorts of things. And I thought it was absolutely great. It's directed great. It's acted great. And there's so much humanity to the thing. Every episode's fantastic. They're about 33 minutes, which is very fast for a TV show, really. But there's so much in each episode, so much crammed into it. Now, there has to come with a big warning for this show, Alan. It is rated R and almost X, I would say.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of male full frontal nudity, maybe bordering on 10 to 15 minutes of that. So it's not just a glance.
Oh my gosh.
There's a huge amount of that. So if that's not your cup of tea, you may not be able to get past that. And the gentleman who's portraying Tommy Lee is the guy who portrayed Winter Soldier, and he is terrific. Yes, he embodies this role. He is fantastic as Tommy Lee. And I have to say, in the first episode, which is told from the point of view of the carpenter, we see what a huge asshole Tommy Lee is. Then the next episode is told from the point of view of Pamela Anderson. And the next episode is told from the point of view of Tommy Lee. And you get to see their point of view on everything. Even though the story's always progressing, moving forward, it's not some flashback nightmare. You get to see how each one deals with their lives. And I have to say, by the time you're in episode 6 and 7, you have as much compassion for Tommy Lee, who is a huge asshole, as you have for any other character you have in this story. And it's absolutely fascinating. It's about a great time in history when Pamela was appearing on Baywatch, and she was perhaps the biggest star on TV because of Baywatch, running around in that red bathing suit where the camera's like basically up her ass while she's running. and it's, you know, and she was gorgeous. And the lady who plays her in this thing is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. So I mean, so well realized. Everything's terrific in this show. I loved it. And every performance is terrific. And for me, this has been one of the best shows I have seen all year, and I can highly recommend it.
Yeah?
Yep. So any comments about that? Since you lived through that time period where they started selling that sex tape, what were your thoughts about that?
Somehow I saw part of the sex tape. I think I didn't see the naughty parts, but I saw parts of it where they were filming. I keep thinking it was in black and white even, but I could be wrong.
No, it's color on a boat. Okay. Yeah, it's color on a boat.
Yeah, they're on a boat, and she's sitting on the boat, yeah. I remember that, and the boat's moving along pretty fast. But, yeah, I remember all the back talk about it, you know, how it got stolen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. From the house. Was their house robbed, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, their house was robbed. For people that need a comparison, this movie reminds you a hell of a lot of the movie Get Shorty, starring John Travolta. Has the same kind of comedy, quirkiness, violence, mobsters. It's got the whole thing. It's really good. I could not recommend it enough for adults. Again, if you can get past certain elements of it, this is just a fun show. It really is. Awesome.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with what I have seen on Hulu. I watched the Stephen King miniseries with James Franco. It was the 11/22/63, where he goes back in time. Oh, it was so good. It's amazingly good.
Yes, I thought that was a great series. I read that twice.
I knew that Hulu was really up in their game, you know, when I saw that.
I really enjoyed that Stephen King story. Like I said, I read the book twice. I really enjoyed the show. I thought James Franco was a pretty good cast, and the setup was almost exactly like the book. They had to change some things, of course.
Yeah.
But it was terrific. What I really loved about the book was the fact that he travels back in time in order to save the janitor from his murderous father killing everybody. And that tension in that part of the story is absolutely terrific. It's even better than the JFK thing. And in some ways, it's funny, the JFK thing seems tacked on. Because the character, for those who don't know, in the story, he has to wait 2.5 years to get to the event of JFK's assassination in order to stop it.
Longer than that. I thought it was like 6 years or something. It was incredible.
Yeah. And there's another subplot in that story where the mob, he keeps betting on these things and winning because he knows the future. And the mob gets wise to the fact that he's always winning. So they send, the mob goes after him to try to develop or figure out how the hell he can keep picking winners. And that's a lot of fun. I thought that was a great subplot for the whole thing.
Well, it's a big romance too, right? He meets this lady and they get married too, don't they? And then they... See, I didn't finish. I read half of the book. I still haven't read the other half. There's a lot more, of course, in the book than in the miniseries.
He does fall in love with her, but they don't get married. She is wounded. I think she might be fatally wounded during the Oswald thing. And he decides to go back in time because, for those, again, who don't know the plot, every time he returns to the future, the past resets. He has to stay there in order for it to be permanent. So when he goes to stop Oswald, she is shot. The government rounds him up, but they can't account for him because he has no Social Security number or anything. And so for some reason, which doesn't make a lot of sense, the government lets him go. So he drives back and travels back through time and resets it.
Mm-hmm.
And the end of the book is he's still in love with her, but he realizes he's even older now. Of course, he can't travel back again and get her to fall in love with him and go through all that. So like he can't do any of that. He won't do it. So he goes and finds her in the present time, and she's at, I think, her retirement party maybe or something. And he goes up and asks her for a dance, and that's how the book ends.
Well, in the miniseries, didn't he stop Oswald, and then all of a sudden he's in the future and it's devastated? Wasn't that one kind of scenario? I remember something like that in the miniseries.
Yes, there is
and
some sort of devastating future.
Yeah, he was. It didn't go the way he expected.
No, it didn't go the way he expected. No, but anyway, we got off on a tangent about Hulu and JFK and that Stephen King book, but it really is a great book and a great TV show. What's it called again?
11/22/63.
Alan, let's move on to our next main topic. And that topic tonight is the Book of Boba Fett, the top 10 things that make this show absolutely horrible. And there may be a few extras thrown in. It's like a salad. You may throw in a couple extra croutons. There may be more than 10 here. But before I begin to list the top 10, I've got my list right in front of me. Alan, what did you think of the show? You watched some of the Book of Boba Fett. What did you think?
I watched most of the first 3 episodes, but I just couldn't get into it, and probably for the same reasons that you're going to explain. And just today, even I tried to go back and finish episode 3, but it's like they're in slow motion. It's almost like they're underwater. Everything's happening at a slow-moving pace. Even the creature he's riding on, I forget the name of it. It's not a bantha, or is it? Anyway, he's on that thing, and it's moving slow. Well, he's supposed to be... Anyway, I don't want to get into all the details because... Well, okay, I will.
No, details are fine. We want to hear what you think.
Well, he's in charge of the city now, right? And they're coming to him. People have problems. They're coming to him. He's like the king. He's sitting on his throne. And next thing you know, he's alone on this big creature, right, with the horns, and he's going 1 mile an hour, maybe slower, and he's crawling along the desert. It's wait a minute, isn't he running the city? What the fudge? Anyway, he gets there, and then he takes place, and then he's coming back really slow. Oh God, that almost explains the whole series for me, at least what I watched. Right? That it's just, oh my gosh, who wrote this stuff? Was it Favreau?
Jon Favreau, yes.
Favreau, yeah. Well, I'll let you get into the details.
All righty then. The top 10 things, as I see it, that make the Boba Fett show really, really horrible. Number 1, and overall, is the writing on this show. The show is written the way a child understands the world. Now, in the plot of the show, Boba Fett has killed off Jabba the Hutt, and he sits on the throne, and now he's the crime boss, because that's how it works. If you kill somebody, you're in charge now. Of course, that's not how anything works in real life, but that's how this show is written. Like, you're supposed to buy into that. Now, let's just say we buy it, okay? Now, he's the new crime boss. When you're a crime boss, there is a sophisticated network of corruption, payoffs. It takes an army of people to run an organization, especially a giant corrupt one that runs a city, supposedly, or a world, and it takes just endless amounts of foot soldiers, I guess you'd call it. None of that exists in this show. It's him and the girl, Boba Fett, and he hires 2 green guys with axes, and that's it. That's everybody he's got on the payroll. Later on, a couple teenagers would join in. They would be on the payroll in their speeder bikes.
Oh, right.
And then a big Wookiee, and essentially that's his force. And it's so laughable, like, it's ridiculous. Like, one good drone strike, they're all gone in a split second. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this, but number one is the writing is extremely childlike. It was offensively childlike, frankly. In the old Batman comic books, the plot was always the same. You'd see a shot of the criminal, no matter who it was, could be the Joker, the Penguin, or whatever ridiculous criminal, and he'd be like, boys, here's the plan. We're going to go rob a bank. And they'd jump into a car, and they'd go to rob a bank, and Batman would somehow spot them, and then fight would ensue. They'd usually escape a couple times, and he'd finally get them. So that was the plot of everything, and that's how a child saw how crime was done, where people would plot in a room, jump into a car, go commit that crime, and return. There's no sophistication. Yeah, there's no nuance. No one ever committed bank fraud ever. Just very, very simple. Now, I guess if you're like 8 years old, a show like this makes perfect sense. You're like, man, I'm buying into that. But yeah, so what you're experiencing in the writing is the long dragged outness of the thing, and that's going to go to point number 2. The actor who plays Boba Fett is ridiculously not compelling.
Sure.
Some people they just sit there and you listen to them act like Christopher Walken can do a 5-minute speech and you're absolutely riveted. This guy, absolutely nothing. He was like the janitor from a middle school. He's like some old man. And there's a reason, by the way, Boba Fett never spoke, was a ridiculously small side character in the original films. There's nothing there. And this guy, when he takes off the helmet, no charisma, no menace. You actually feel like he's bored with the whole thing. And in fact, the character himself, the way it's written, questions it. Like, why are we even doing this? Like, what? And we the people watching it ask the same question. Like, why are you even bothering to become crime lord? What's in it for you? He doesn't want the prestige. He just wants to chum up to the people in town and, ask them, hey, I'm the new crime boss in town. Just want to let you know everything will be fine. It's preposterous. It was so bad.
Well, they lost me at episode 1, now that you remind me. He's already doesn't have the outfit on. That the reason you're watching, because he's Boba Fett, right? Well, he looks like old man janitor, like you said, and they've chained him up, and he's being dragged through the desert. And I forget how many hours that seemed to take. It just seemed to go on and on. You already lost me,
Yeah, I will. I'm going to jump a little ahead on that, but so what that's supposed to show us, that whole, I guess, sequence of events is supposed to bring him low, so that he can then be brought high. Rather than being a loner, he's accepted into this Tusken Raider community as one of them, and therefore he is taught a sense of community, except for the fact, which is one of my points, that he uses the Tusken Raiders for a shakedown operation that eventually gets them all killed. And it's all entirely his fault that the people that saved him, he gets them wiped out.
Yeah. And when you were talking about like 8-year-old wrote this, it's like that symbol. It's like, we're the gang and we're going to leave a mark on everything, so it's us.
Yeah.
It's like a old DC comic. They would do that, So who the criminal is at all times.
Yes. All right, so point number 5. What is really Boba Fett after here? He has plenty of credits, he says, so it's not about amassing money. he doesn't need money. So that's not it. Like, it's not is it about control? We'll get to what he states it is in a second. But that brings me to number 6, which is he's basically completely incompetent as the crime lord of the city. He is bad at it. You know, the mafia used to run the small town that I lived in when I was a child, and they kept that town orderly.
Oh, wow.
There was only a certain amount of crime and so forth that they were going to tolerate. And if you came into their part of the city and tried to, fool around, well, they would get rid of you quick. So he offered nothing as a crime lord. He offered no threat. He offered no menace. He offered no ideas. And I'm not even sure he was collecting shakedown money off of people. He was just wandering around the city with his girlfriend going, "Hi, everybody, I'm in charge." So
well, when they first came out on the street and we're looking around like, "Hey, we're in charge now," those 4 or 5 guys jumped down around them. And already that was like an old DC comic book, right? It's like you're not going to shoot them from a building where you're protected. No, you're going to jump down in front of them and go, "Hey, we're going to kill you now." And then knowing he's powerful, he's going to be fighting back. And that girl, she's like his assassin friend, right? She's real good at fighting. So they're like, "Okay, here we are, let's fight." No, it doesn't work that way.
Perhaps the show is really meant for children because just what you just said on point number 7, reason the show is horrible, is the action. The way it's choreographed, the way that it's presented, and the way that's essentially carried out. There is no sense of menace per se in the action. First off, the physical choreography. It's like watching your grandfather fight. He's spinning around with a stick, knocking people down with a stick, hitting people with a stick. Is that really the most efficient way to fight, is my question. But let's set that aside. The way it's directed is silly, and there's all these beams and shooting and stuff and running through the streets. But if you notice, a lot of it is just those sort of digital explosions where a box doesn't move or no chips on. There's no chips on the wall. If you remember the scene in The Matrix where they enter the lobby, they shoot the whole lobby to pieces. Nothing is shot to pieces in this show. Everything's just as clean as the before shot.
Well, I just watched the giant Wookiee. It was like an evil Wookiee, and they're all trying to fight it, and they finally drop it into that hole because everything gets dropped into the hole, right?
Yes.
And, and I noticed they would shoot lasers at him, and he doesn't even flinch. It's like, why even bother with the laser pistols? Didn't even scratch him, So much ammunition shot in that show, especially the last episode. It seems just like stuff is bing, shing, chang, shing, bouncing and hitting it, all to the effect of nothing. It seems very unmenacing, if that makes sense. Very, very like nothing is really happening. So it's definitely like a G-rated, right? Would you say?
Yes, extremely G-rated. Extremely G-rated. So
because when he came up on those bantha, whatever they are, the ones that were helping him, and then he got off his big creature and he walks along the desert and he sees they're all dead, his friends in the tents, right? But there's no blood or anything. They're just still intact. They're just laying there like they're asleep.
Yeah, he takes no personal responsibility for that, by the way, since he's the one who caused it all, as I mentioned. The plot is he's now angry at them. And, there's a scene where the guy with the red eyes and the blue face comes up and says, "Boba Fett, it was the Trade Federation that killed, your Tusken Raiders. Yes, it's us who did it." And Boba Fett, slides his hand down like he's going to use his gun. And that's supposed to be so menacing. Like, you're supposed to be like Clint Eastwood, pulling out his gun slow, like, oh, shit, there's going to be trouble here. You never have any sense of that menace in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. It is terrible. It is terrible. So, all right, let's go on to number 8. Boba Fett is just not a crime lord. He's just a thug. And the guy who, with the blue face and the red eyes, even says that you're just a thug. When do you stop becoming a killer? So Boba Fett's nothing. And the whole idea that him being a crime lord is ridiculous. He has no connections. He has no network again. It doesn't make any sense. And for number 9, his true motivation is finally revealed. He says that he's just sticking up for the people of Mos Espa, or whatever the name of that town is.
Uh-huh.
So he's there because they need him, and he's sticking up for them. None of that's true. The whole reason the town is being attacked and bombarded is because he's there, because he defied them, and so they're coming to kill him. The town was peaceful before his shiny butt showed up.
Well, I noticed that even when he tried to just do simple things to run the town, like he comes upon those bikers, and the guy's like, the guy had the water? Is that? And he's like, they're stealing my water, And so he goes to check it out, and then he ends up hiring them, a couple of them, right? He's like, the girl.
Yep.
He's like, and then the guy comes out, what the hell's going on? And then he goes, well, you're also charging too much, so you're going to charge a lot less now. And the guy's like, gosh, I should never have tried to get help from the city, right? He just screwed me.
I think they're 2 different ways. I think that's supposed to show these some kind of benevolent crime lord, but it's preposterous. It's preposterous.
You don't go around telling people
back
what
to my
charge. I mean, what is this, a dictatorship? I guess so.
I guess so. So back to point number 9, just to nail that down. He didn't give a hoot about the people in that city. And so him claiming that, I'm here to defend them. No, you're here to defend your crime interests. You're the one who brought all this trouble to the city. You're the one who got everybody killed. Everybody's running for their lives, screaming out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's all because of him.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of crime ring is he really running? That's it just blows my mind. Okay, so now the number 10 thing wrong with the show, and believe me, I could list so many, but the number 10 thing is he becomes crime lord of the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy now. He decides that he has to go up against the Pike Syndicate because the Pike Syndicate is importing and outporting spice, and they're running crime. I have 2 questions here. Isn't he a part of that syndicate now? Like, isn't he like one of the capo crime lords, like in The Godfather, where he's running a part of the wing of the operation? But instead of that, he says, no, I'm going against all the, the intergalactic trade and all the stuff that the Pike Syndicate's doing, and all the thousands and millions of people they have employed in the spaceships. I'm going against all that. But to what end? Is he going to import guns instead? Is he going to do something besides spice? Why does he choose to go against the syndicate that he is now a part of? And if he's going to go against them, does that mean he's going to run the intergalactic trade through all these worlds with the spaceships and the thousands of people and the spice and the underground agreements? He's not fit to run the city. That guy couldn't run a Burger King, you know what I mean? And now he's taking on the Pike Syndicate in order to take over the intergalactic trade of this drug. I don't know. It seems so far-fetched. And in the last episode, the Pike Syndicate is killed by the assassin girl, which they should have done in the first 10 minutes of the first episode. Would have solved a lot of problems if it was just that easy. So, anyway, right off the top of my head, that's the top 10 things I really found horrible about Boba Fett. I know there's a lot of people who liked it and enjoyed it. And listen, Disney is in the business of selling those little dolls that look like Grogu. That's what the business model is, my friends. So they jam in 2 episodes with that little cute guy is wandering around with the big eyes and the little ears. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that show was like. A bunch of guys sat around a table and said, you know, we need to sell some stuff. We need another show. And we got to get those Grogu dolls off the shelf. Because, you know, the merchandising of that's been through the roof. So I think that's why we got this show we got.
I seem to think The Mandalorian, which I watched and liked, had the danger. I seem to remember that you kept wondering if Grogu was going to get shot or kidnapped or, you know, someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah. You've heard of that technology now where they're using the 360 room, right?
Yeah.
So Mandalorian is shot in the 360 room, which for those who don't know it, they have a new technology now where they can computer generate a background. And as the character in the camera moves around in that background, the background moves digitally to match the camera and the actor through depth of field and all sorts of stuff.
Sky up above.
Yeah, you see it used a lot in the Loki show as well. So this show is shot in that same environment. What I don't like about this, in some respects, is you always have the feeling you're standing on a soundstage with them. There's a couple scenes of Boba Fett, especially when they walk into the destroyed bar. If you notice that scene in the end, the last show, there's light streaming into the windows because everything's destroyed when the windows are blown out. But the light doesn't really stream on to the people walking into the room, and they sort of make sure that they don't get quite in the light stream because then you'd have to do that effect. And so, I don't know. To me, at some point, just like when they're running through the backgrounds and there's explosions going off, but there's really nothing moving, there's nothing being destroyed, it seems like you're running around in the digital world in some respects.
Yeah.
That's the Loki show had the same feeling. You know, it's well realized, but it just feels like there's an actor on a stage being filmed in front of a big screen, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think originally that was just used here and there. You know, we don't want to go to that planet. We'll just have you stand in this sand pit, you know, and put this behind you. But I think it's gone so far now that they're trying to do the whole episode, basically.
Yes, and of course, it's cheaper than hiring carpenters. You know that throne room, I'm sure, is digital that he sits in. I'm sure this city that they walk through, and let's be honest, some of the long shots are beautiful. Like, I'm not going to say that the digital people are not doing a great job. I'm sure that, like most digital people, they're overworked, underpaid, and the deadline is yesterday. You know, like, hey, we need those 20 digital explosions by lunch, you know, but they won't look very good. Do it anyway, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you, I know you've seen movies like this. I'm trying to think of the last one I saw like this. Gosh, I'm losing it now. But it's a movie where they're shooting back and forth with machine guns constantly at each other. And nobody's really hit, and nobody's really shot, and nobody's really hurt. But these guys are just back and forth, thousands of rounds, windows at cars and doorways, and after a while, you just have this feeling like this is just some fake stuff. I am watching nothing but really, really fake stuff, and that's the problem with this show. You never have a feeling that anybody's in trouble, that the violence in any way is real. The little laser guns they're using, as you know, the shells are bouncing off and stuff, and I don't know. And, and for those who are going to scream foul, I will mention that right in the middle of the book of Boba Fett, the Mandalorian has a 3-episode arc. So basically Boba Fett's not even mentioned. He's not even in his own show for 3 episodes.
It's an advertisement for the Mandalorian.
Yes. So I thought those were the best episodes, especially when he's thrown out of the Mandalore tribe and he's kicked out now. So I thought that was fun. But those were by far the best episodes. The Mandalore character, for whatever reason, even though he's wearing a face shield, is way more compelling than Boba Fett.
I know. Yeah. Well, you know how I felt about shows where they don't want them to wear their outfits that they're famous for. Like the Daredevil first TV series. It was good. It was great. But he's not Daredevil till the very minute of the last second of the last episode of the first season. He gets the costume. It makes me so angry. I get so mad that you're trying to avoid what made him popular in the first place. And that's what they did in this. Right off the bat, he doesn't have the Boba Fett outfit.
There is no doubt that this show was just stringing stuff out. And the whole Dances with Wolves basically plot, where he's taken in by Indians and nurtured and comes to have respect for those Indians and empathy for those Indians. And then when said Indians are wiped out, he feels bad about it. But like I said, the messed up, point number 8, or was it point number 8 or whatever, maybe 6? It's his fault. The whole town is destroyed and people are attacked by things. And rather than going and getting his gunship, which has big weapons and all this stuff, he goes and gets a giant lizard, which he rides into this city. It's knocking down buildings and destroying shit. And that's how a 10-year-old thinks he should fight.
Yeah, I'm going to giant lizard.
Yeah, if I only had a devil dinosaur I could ride around on and take revenge on. That's how a 10-year-old sees that.
But isn't that's how they ended Game of Thrones? It's like, I'll just get on the dragon and I'll just burn everything to the ground.
Yep. So they could have done that a couple episodes earlier. When I was young, my dad gave me all these different rules of storytelling because I was trying to write stories. And he says that when you write TV, like he had the future set out for me, I was going to write TV. He goes, when you write TV, he goes, you always have to have this secret organization in the background or the overlooming threat that is constant forever. He goes, and that keeps the show going. So the X-Files had that, the background secret organization always working against them. The White Walkers were that in Game of Thrones, the omnipotent enemy that's slowly coming but never quite materializes, more or less, but always a threat, And the show that didn't do it, that should have done it, was Kolchak the Night Stalker. Really? He needed a secret organization to working against him week after week in order to string the show out into a bigger, more thematic, tapestry. So, but X-Files was born from Kolchak, and they did it right. So it's very important that when you have a show that you always have the secret organization working against the hero, because it provides an endless conflict forever, much like Spectre in James Bond.
The series that was super popular when I was young was The Fugitive, and that one was Will They Catch Him? That was, you got that hanging on him every episode, right? They're going to get him. They're going to catch him. And I remember, I'll never forget when the last episode was shown. My whole family, relatives, they were all together watching that last episode. They find out who's been chasing him, or who was really responsible for the murder and all that stuff.
And boy, would they use that show formula for so many shows in the 70s. The Hulk. There was another one by the guy who I think played Longstreet. He was like a wandering guy for a while who wandered around, looking for trouble. But yeah, there was a couple of those shows like that where every week the guy would have to scram out of town because of the trouble the Hulk got into or whatever, because they were always looking for him. He was basically a fugitive. Yeah, that formula is tried and true, and that's what the Hulk did.
Yeah, you've always got, a lot of these series I would watch, like Ozark or different ones, and they always have, like you just said, there's some big plot that's covering everything, and then you got all the little subplots, like, can we do this little thing? And then you have to solve a few of those little things or people aren't going to keep watching, right? So it keeps solving a few of the little ones, then you come back, the big problem again, and then you go back to the little, and it's so well crafted that you can't stop watching,
Ozark is a good example of that. The overarching enemy is, of course, the mob, who is eventually going to come and, be pissed off that their money's not being laundered, quote unquote, correctly. And then you have all the other parasites in that community who are trying to feed off them, and especially the crazy farm lady. Holy smokes, is she scary? That is.
Oh, yeah.
That woman. Yeah, whoa. Boy. Right. Yeah, it is some creepy stuff. All the casting in Ozark is really good. I have not watched it. I have not watched the new season, and again, I have the feeling, and I know they're doing it because they want to make more shows, is that they keep stretching it out on me. I think for me, I get burned out a little on the same thing over and over. I'm looking for something different, I guess, and that's why I probably have stopped watching that show. I really enjoyed it, but I'm not compelled to go back to that community. Again, I don't know why.
Well, that's the way I felt, but then as soon as I start watching the new episodes, I'm back in again, and I'm 100%, So you just got to start watching again.
For those who've never watched Ozark, I think Breaking Bad is the closest analogous show.
Definitely.
You're rooting for an underdog, and what this show has that I really like is the wife is just as evil as our accountant hero, She has as much she has as much agency, and remember she was having an affair on the husband, and so she is the opposite of an angel, this one.
Well, I found it interesting that girl that worked for him, the young girl with the curly hair, she's a real badass too. Yeah, everybody's a scumbag in the show. Everybody. Except for the daughter and the son. I guess they're like, especially his daughter is like super innocent, it seems. Yeah, well, they're like the ones who are in harm's way that eventually are going to be in harm's way. Yeah, right. Yeah, they're the collateral. Yeah, that's the only thing that they care about besides money, the main characters. Right. There's the kids. No, I was really fascinated with it because Bateman is usually in comedies, and then here he is being this badass. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's going to end this one, because I don't think it's going to end well. He has done a lot of bad stuff, and there has to be a comeuppance for all that. You know what I mean? Well, with Breaking Bad, he didn't make it. Right. He didn't make it. I think the one who paid for his sins, it was Jesse in Breaking Bad. He's held captive as a slave, making mess in the pit. Remember that? Oh my gosh! Did you see where they ended it? They had a little another ending or another little mini series thing. Well, it's just a few episodes, right? Where they show Jesse after he got away at the end. And they go into that. Yes, I did see that. It was good. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Yeah, it was good. Such a compelling character. I remember watching Breaking Bad and thinking, wow, what a great show this is, Yeah. And then, isn't there at some point where the wife gives away some of the money or something? He goes to look for the money and it's gone, or some crazy thing happens? I can't remember. Somehow she betrays him. Yeah. Like in the crawl space in the house or something, and she takes half it and does something? And he opens it, it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets drawn deeper and deeper and deeper into the damn thing. It's so good. Yeah,
I'll never forget where he went up he had to talk to those criminal guys, and he went up there and he set off a bomb or something, didn't he? And got out. It was like an impossible task he had to do, and he pulled it off.
Yeah, he kills the main villain in the old folks' home by blowing up the wheelchair. Isn't that how he does it?
Oh,
yes.
And the way the guy walks out, and you think, it didn't even hurt him, and then he turns and half his head's gone. Like, my God. That was crazy. That guy was such a good cast. He is so menacing. He's the villain on The Boys, too. He's the executive in The Boys. Yeah. What a good actor. There's an actor who has a sense of menace, as opposed completely to the actor with Boba Fett who has none. Well, folks, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today for the Dan and Alan Review Stuff show. I had a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. And as always, I'd like to thank my co-host, Alan, for his thoughts, his insights, his good humor, his talent, his charm and charisma. And I think we'll be back again soon with another show before you know it. For those who don't know, Alan published not long ago a really great comic book that he will talk about in a second, where you can grab a copy of that. It's a full-color book about Dr. Peepers, the time-traveling steampunk superhero. And he also created a movie that is traveling throughout film festivals right now as we speak, throughout the entire world. London, you name it. Alan has sent in copies of his movie, and you can watch it for free on YouTube if you want to. Alan, I'm going to hand off to you. Can you tell us about the book and about the movie? Well, the movie is Get Lost in the Outdoors, and it was my idea, which the star of the movie, Dean Lacrone, helped me flesh out most of the story. I gave him what could be equivalent to a 5-10 minute episode, and together we turned it into a 90-minute feature comedy. And it's basically a 39-year-old man who is still striving after 30 years to get his Junior Ranger badge. And anyway, and the book is on Amazon, and it's called Dr. Peepers' Steampunk Hero, 76 pages. It's a magazine size with comics and 14 contributors. It's $20 on Amazon, and Dan Burke has quite a bit of artwork in there.
Yes, I do. For those who don't know, I do scrawl and draw a little bit.
You're a good scrawler.
Yes, I'm a good scrawler. Yeah, the Dr. Peepers book is cool, folks, because it's kind of made to look like a 1968 Marvel comic book. So when you open it, it's got some great art and stories and cartoons and comics and, things like that, fun ads and stuff. So it's a labor of love. It's a lot of fun, and you can't go wrong for $20. But back to the movie, though. I saw the movie. Oh. Yeah, I loved the movie. I saw it twice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, really good. And how do they find it on YouTube? Where they type in your name, or they type in the name of the movie?
The fastest way is Get Lost in the Outdoors, Alan Freeman, Allen, because that's my channel, and it just seems to go there faster. All
right, well, here's the story for this show, folks. Alan and I are going to try to come in a couple times a week. We're going to take possibly weekends off, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the world of movies, television, books, and things like that. Whatever's hot, whatever we're interested in, that's what we're going to be talking about. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back before you know it with another show.
All right.
All right. Have a great day.
Time.
Cool.
Same channel.
And for those that are interested and love a great comic book, be sure to check out Dr. Peepers' Steampunk Superhero. Available on Amazon for $20.
Close. Steampunk Hero.
Close? Well, fuck.
Hero.
It's too bad, dude. That's all I'm doing. That's all you get. That's just enough.
Get 2 tries.
I think that's pretty damn good, frankly. I think that was smooth as butter.
Okay.
From the intro to the outro.
Plus the fact
you don't think so?
Well, I mean, it's smooth. It's just you kept getting the title wrong. But other than that, fine. It's just Steampunk Hero. Dr. Peeper Steampunk Hero.